Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final fall nutrition wellness series. This is Mike here, sport coordinator in athletics and recreation. If you haven't already been following our previous sessions, you can see them on IGTV as well as on our website for the previous sections. So thanks again. Hopefully, if you received my original email, you would have had enough time to retrieve the ingredients that were required for this particular recipe. So we are doing butternut squash tacos. So a little bit of a hybrid kind of fun meal for the fall, using some traditional fall ingredients, but also some fun twists to it. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to go through our ingredient list. You'll notice that I have two cameras running. I have a camera that's focused in on the cutting board and some of the ingredient close-ups, so you'll be able to see. And then the other camera, which is on me right now, a little further away. So just so you can kind of get the most out of it. Okay, all right, so let's get started here. So the first thing that we're going to do is run through the list of ingredients. So we're doing butternut squash tacos. So obviously we're going to need some butternut squash. So if you don't know what those are, not a lot of you might, maybe you will. I don't really ever use them for my cooking, so this was kind of also new for me to get into, and that's the whole idea about these sessions, is to do some different unique recipes that you wouldn't normally do. So that's a butternut squash right there. You can get that in your produce section with maybe the potatoes, sweet potatoes, stuff like that. We're going to use about 2 of these. So this is a small to medium sized butternut squash. So if you can have 2, that would have been great. Now here's the fun part. Before we get to the rest of the ingredients, you need to be careful, because when we're cutting the butternut squash, you got to be extremely careful. It's really tough and stubborn. So when you're cutting it in half, please be careful. So make sure you have a proper knife and cutting board. Okay, the rest of the ingredients are as follows. We're going to need some olive oil. So I have some extra virgin olive oil right here. You are going to need some salt and pepper, regular salt and pepper that you have at home, some cumin, and some, what I have here is chili powder. So I already had these. If you have them in your spice rack, even better. Cumin and chili powder. As well, you're going to need an avocado, a ripe one, if you can. You're going to add that and for more flavor in our taco. Fresh limes. We're going to zest some fresh lime juice on top of the tacos for some flavor at the end. I gotta love the lime, so make sure you have a couple fresh limes. And we're going to garnish with some cilantro, of course, for our tacos. So I have some fresh cilantro here. Okay. And for the final piece, when you're making and assembling the taco, obviously you need the tortillas. Okay, I have a fajita style tortilla, but it doesn't really matter. It can be like a flour, corn tortilla, and depending on the size that you want. This is like a medium size, so it's not too big, but it's not as small as some of the mini taco ones. Okay. And we're going to be using today, I have broccoli slaw. You can use coleslaw, or you can use a kale slaw, but that's what we're going to go for. That's usually what you'd find in a taco joint, is some of this slaw. Okay. All right. And this is optional, but what I would recommend doing is picking up a can of black beans, and a lot of obviously kind of like Mexican and South American recipes would use black beans in the tacos as well. Just a can. Very affordable. Okay. All right. So let's get started then. So what you're going to need to do, and obviously we don't have enough time to go through everything, but you're going to preheat your oven to 425. And what you're going to do is we're going to cut your squash in half. And this will basically where we begin. Okay. So what you're going to do is cut it in half. You want to be alert of how strong it is. So like I said, the best thing that you can do to be safe is use a proper knife so that you're not working at it when it cuts it smoothly. You want to go ahead and place the knife in the middle. I'm hoping you can see here on the other camera, directly down the middle of that butternut squash. Now I have it like this, right down the middle. Looks a little graphic, but we're close to Halloween. So you have that, and you follow through, and then what you end up doing was cutting down the bottom. You're going to remove the knife. Make sure it hits the cutting board so you know it went all the way through. Remove it, and then you're going to place the knife back in the middle where you first started your deep cut, like a surgeon or something. And you're going to be careful holding the other end, and you're going to follow through the other way, like so. And you sliced it in half. So there you have it. That is how you cut or how I did the butternut squash in half right there. Okay, so as you'll notice, you have some seeds. Okay, so we need to remove those. So we're going to take a spoon, and if you have a compost bin or garbage or whatever you want to use, go ahead and remove basically that whole area. So we're going to carve around where those seeds are. Doesn't look very great. It's kind of like a pumpkin, right? It's the same family. Removing the seeds. Hopefully you can see on that above camera. And that's what it'll look like. So now the seeds are all gone, and you have that little kind of pit that's there. And now you're going to do the same thing for the other side. And then we have to peel it. So another thing to keep in mind is that the butternut squash, the outer skin is very, very strong. So it takes a very sharp peeler. So make sure that you don't have a dinky little peeler like I do from the dollar store, which is very difficult to peel. Okay, but basically what ends up looking like is you peeled it and the skin is off, and you can tell that that I had a rough go at that. So, but either way, it doesn't have to look pretty. Go ahead and peel both of the butternut squash. And now we're going to cut it into the cubes. So similar to how we did for the sweet potato fries, we're going to just basically cut horizontally. So you have slices, and then you can go from there and just cut your vary, but mostly they'll look like that. Okay, and again from the other camera, like so. All right, so we've got our cubes. This is what we're using for the butternut squash we're going to be baking. So remember, your oven's heating right now to 425. Once that goes off, you're going to have a large bowl where you're going to place all of your cubes in. So after you finish cutting, I'm not going to cut the whole thing. You're going to have all of your cubes cut, your butternut squash. Add those into a large bowl where you will combine your seasoning and your oils, and then you will throw that in the oven and bake it for 10 minutes. Okay, so here we go. I've got my cubes. Here they are. That's the butternut squash cut up. Once you've done both sides and you've completed cutting the whole butternut squash, then you can add your olive oil, okay, and your seasoning. So your salt, your pepper, your cumin, and your chili powder, you're going to add into the large bowl, and you're going to combine and mix together. And then you're going to have an oven tray. So I already have mine from previous. Okay. All right. So what ends up happening, and I'll show you here in a second. And there we are. Okay, so that's baked for 20 minutes, which is what it requires here. And you're gonna have a nice seasoned butternut squash to use for your tacos. So 10 minutes, you're gonna take it out of the oven, shuffle it around to make sure that they're spread evenly and can bake throughout. And you're going to put it back in for another 10 minutes, so 20 minutes altogether at 425. Keep in mind that depending on how ripe the butternut squash is, will result in maybe cooking longer, but let's just say 10 minutes each side. Okay, and then you have your butternut squash. Okay, so next up, what you're going to do is you're going to rinse your black beans. So if you have a can of black beans like this, you're going to drain the can of the liquid that's in here in a strainer, rinse them with some water, and then you'll have your black beans. What I would suggest doing is towards the end of the 20 minutes of cooking the butternut squash cubes in the oven is to take them out and pour the black beans in there to kind of cook for a little bit in the seasonings. Adds a bit more flavor and warms up the black beans, which is kind of nice and almost like a restaurant style. Okay, so that's your next step. And then we're going to prepare the tacos. So you're going to take your tortilla you have here. You're going to take one out, take a plate. You're going to pour some of your slaw on the base of the tortilla. And if you'd like to, as a bonus, you can throw your tortilla in the oven to get a little warm and to broil it if you want to, just to kind of give it a nice restaurant feel. And then you're going to add the rest here. So you want to take a fresh lime, cut that line in half. And I have already done my taco. So here you will see. Okay, so here's my taco here. So I have everything on the plate that we've already discussed, the tortilla, the butternut squash that cooked for 20 minutes with all the seasonings. I have now taken a couple slices of the ripe avocado and have included that in the taco, as well as the base, which is the broccoli slaw. And I have put some cilantro on top as well to kind of garnish it. And then we're going to take the lime juice, fresh lime, and squeeze some lime juice all over the taco here. Lots of flavor. We're not using a traditional dressing for these tacos, so you can go ahead and use the lime juice. And you have some olive oil in there and some seasonings. It's not really required of you to have a full kind of dressing. Okay, if you want more flavor, then sure, go for it. We're trying to keep this as healthy as possible. Okay, and there you have it. So that is the recipe for your taco. Okay, so again, tips. Make sure when you're cutting your butternut squash that you have a sharp enough knife and you're very careful cutting this in half, and make sure that you have a peeler that is sharp enough to peel properly. As you can see, mine is not, so it looks pretty rough, gouged. Okay, and then you're going to cut your cubes, and I would recommend, if you can, use garlic powder as a bonus ingredient. I didn't mention that here, but it's always good to add a little bit of garlic powder for some additional flavoring. And then you can use any type of slaw, whether that's broccoli slaw, kale slaw, regular coleslaw, whatever it is. Recommend buying that or just having around that. Okay, so that's everything. So I hope you enjoyed that quick little recipe. That was our fall nutrition wellness series, our final recipe, butternut squash tacos. This is Mike. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope everyone stays well. Enjoy. Bon appetit.